Hello children, how are you doing? Are you enjoying all the topics that you are studying? Well, I'm sure you are. Let's enhance our learning and study a very interesting topic called verbs. Students, have a look at this picture and a set of words here. Another column you have just one word. Try to figure out what are these. Children, have a look at these words given in two separate boxes. Try to join them to make complete sentences. In the first box we have words like Aryan, she, the chef, the mechanic. These look like subjects, isn't it? While in the other box we have short phrases like repaired the car, writes novels, washes the clothes well, prepared delicious food. Did you notice any action words here? Try to join them. So now we will study further about verbs and various things related to verbs. Children, verbs are the words that denote actions, state of being or possession by or of subjects and objects. They show what the subjects or objects are, what they do, think, say, have and undergo with reference to each other in the sentence. For example, the dog barks all night long. I feel very stupid. We have good news for you. Please come and meet us. तो वर्ब सिर्फ एक्शंस के बारे में नहीं बताते हैं, बल्कि जो सब्जेक्ट क्या क्या काम कर रहे हैं, क्या वो सोचते हैं, क्या फीलिंग्स हैं, बहुत सारी चीज़ें रिलेटेड हैं. To revise this basic understanding, attempt the given exercise here. Now we will see verb and its object, the relation between them, how they affect each other. Verb and its object. For most sentences, a verb needs an object. The following example will illustrate this better. Kanika practices. Kanika practices for the competition. The first sentence doesn't give any information as to what kind of practice or why Kanika practices, as there is no object. Whereas in the second sentence, instead tells us why she is practicing. The second sentence में हमें एक object clearly दिख रहा है. However, it is not essential that all verbs have an object. In the following exercise, you must encircle the verbs and underline the objects. Let's study what are direct and indirect objects. So there are these two types. At times, verbs have two objects. For example, the old man invited his daughter for dinner. Here, object 1 is dinner and object 2 daughter. Object 1 answers the question what, and object 2 answers the question whom the old man invited. The daughter, his daughter. In other words, the what question is the direct object and whom question instead is the indirect object. To practice this short topic, you have another exercise following this. And now we will study transitive, intransitive and ditransitive verbs related to object only. Let's examine the following examples from a different angle. Kanika practices, and the other sentence, Kanika practices for the competition. Now here the verb in the first sentence does not have an object, just Kanika practices. Such a verb is called intransitive, the one which doesn't have an object. So here this one, first one is intransitive. The same verb in the second sentence becomes transitive. The verb remains the same, practices, but it becomes transitive as it has an object. On the other hand, ditransitive verbs are those that can take two objects. For example, the old man invited his daughter for dinner. Here we have direct object also, indirect object also. So, attempt another following exercise to strengthen this topic. Now we have something called incomplete verbs and complements. Let's consider the following. The bird appears, the houses were, and the lawyer seemed. The verbs agree with their respective subjects but do not have objects because they do not show any action or possession. This means ये ग्रामेटिकली करेक्ट है, लेकिन यहाँ पर कोई भी ऑब्जेक्ट नहीं है क्योंकि कोई एक्शन है ही नहीं दिखाने के लिए या कोई पोजेशन भी नहीं है. Such loose ended verbs are considered incomplete verbs, also known as verbs of incomplete predication. So here also known as incomplete. You need other word or words to complete such sentences. These words are called complements and together with the verbs form complete predicates. Let's complete the earlier examples in this slide. Earlier we had the bird appears, but now since we've added a complement, the bird appears scared, or the houses were ready to move in. The lawyer seemed worried. So verbs such as appear, be in all forms, look and seem are some common incomplete verbs. Students, now we move on to two types of complements, subjective and objective complements. So complements usually contain nouns or adjectives. For example, Captain Anshuman is helpful. Captain Anshuman employed Gangaram as the supervisor. The adjective helpful and the noun supervisor complete the respective sentences. Note that the word helpful tells us something more about the subject. And who's the subject? Captain Anshuman. It is therefore a subject complement. It is helping the subject to become more meaningful, adding more information. Supervisor tells us something more about the object Anshuman. This makes the noun as objective complement. Do try out the following exercise to practice this topic. Now we have auxiliary and main verbs and the difference between these two types. As shown in this table, verbs can be classified as auxiliary and main. Main is the one that you always come across, which denotes direct action. Let's read about auxiliary first. Now these verbs cannot stand on their own and need the help of main verbs to make meaningful sentences, and they form tenses and passive forms when used with the main verbs. Whereas main verbs they can stand on their own to make meaningful sentences, and they denote various mental and physical actions. For example, have they finished the job? Here obviously the main verb is finish because you can make it stand alone, and have is the auxiliary verb. Similarly, she does not meet anyone. Here, what is the main verb? Meet. And auxiliary is does, or you can also call auxiliary verb as helping verbs. Be, do and have can also function as main verbs. Therefore, they are called primary auxiliary verbs. You have another practice exercise here. And now we move on to another type of auxiliaries called modal auxiliaries. Now auxiliary verbs that cannot be used as main verbs are called modal auxiliaries. There are 14 auxiliary verbs in English. Let's read along. Be, can, could, do, have, may, might, must, ought, ought to, shall, should, used, used to, will and would. We have another category of verbs which is finite and non-finite verbs. Finite verbs are those that change according to the number or person of the subject. They also have different forms in different tenses. तो finite verbs change होते रहते हैं. किस पर निर्भर करते हैं? According to the number or person of the subject. And also another feature, they have different forms in different tenses. That means they will change according to tenses. Let's study these examples. The doctor shifted to a new clinic. Now, non-finite verbs are those that do not change at all. For example, the doctor has to shift to a new clinic. We have another practice exercise for you. We move on to another important element related to verbs, which is subject-verb agreement. Here we will learn what is the relation between a subject and a verb and how they affect each other. ये सब टॉपिक हमें ग्रामेटिकली करेक्ट सेंटेंसेस लिखने में बहुत ही ज़्यादा मदद करता है. There must be an agreement between the verb and the subject in terms of number and person. If the subject is singular in number, then its verb should also be singular in number. For example, Nitika is playing badminton. So let's understand the rule. If subject is singular, then verb also should be singular. Like here, Nitika is a singular noun and playing also is singular verb. If the subject is plural in number, then its verb should also be plural in number. For example, my students are celebrating their victory. So here, let's highlight. Subject is plural, verb also is plural. Like Nitika was singular and is playing was singular. Here, my students is plural and are is also plural. The form of the verb also needs to be modified according to the person of the subject. Now there are various rules related to it. So more points to remember for subject-verb agreement, also called SVA. आप कई जगह इसे सिर्फ SVA के नाम से भी पढ़ेंगे. If the subjects are referred to as one, then the verb will be singular. For example, bread and butter taste good. Here, bread and butter is considered one, as a one entity, one whole. So we will consider it singular. So verb will also be singular. But if two nouns refer to the same person or thing, a singular verb is used. For example, Guru Dutt, the actor, and an eminent person is no more. So here two references are there for the same thing. So the singular verb is used, which is. If the subject and the verb are separated by a group of words, then the verb must agree with the subject. Let's see this in the example. The girl with several books in her bag is my sister. So here we have the subject, the girl, and then we have several other words. But the verb here must agree with the main subject, that is girl. Ignore all other words. Therefore, we will use is, not are. So, is the verb here. When the name of a country, a book or a film is denoted in a plural noun, it takes a singular verb. Let's read these sentences. The United States has signed a deal with Britain. So, has is the verb here, which is agreeing with the subject, the United States, and which is the name of a country. Similarly, 7 Days is my favorite book. So, it is 7 Days is the name of the book, and here is the verb, which is agreeing with the subject. Another interesting rule, children, is when a collective noun acts as one unit, use a singular verb. तो इसके लिए आपको collective nouns बार बार रिवाइज करने चाहिए ताकि आप उन्हें आइडेंटिफाई कर सकें एक सेंटेंस में. अगर ये कर सकेंगे तभी ये रूल अप्लाई कर पाएंगे. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अ बोर्ड ऑफ डायरेक्टर्स makes the decision. Now here, what is the collective noun? A group of directors? Yes, a board of directors. So therefore, the verb agreeing with it is makes. We will consider this singular. So singular verb. In singular verb, you will always have s added. Another rule, when a collective noun represents the individuals in a group, use a plural verb. Now this is another rule of collective noun, right? For example, the board have contrary opinions. But here the verb that we've used is plural, have, because this collective noun is representing the individuals in a group. People, police and cattle are always in the plural. We consider them plural only and take a plural verb matching. For example, the police are controlling the crowd. This is important. Are is a plural verb. You will not write the police is controlling the crowd. People are cheering the players. Also, measurements of money, time and distance usually require a singular verb. Let's read these sentences. 10,000 rupees is donated by this gentleman every year. Since we are considering 10,000 rupees as singular, hence it will take singular verb. So I will underline here, this is our subject, singular, and this is our verb, which is also singular. Similarly, 2 hours is a long time to wait to see a doctor. When one part of the subject is singular and the other part is plural, the verb agrees with the nearer part. For smooth expression, place the plural part of the subject closer to the verb. For example, either a pay raise or more benefits are expected by workers. So here we are considering the one which is closer, and closer is benefits. Now this is plural, hence we will use plural. We will consider the closest, not this. This is farther. Now expressions such as with, together with, including, accompanied by, in addition to or as well do not change the number of the subject. If the subject is singular, then we use singular verb. Let's read these sentences. The president accompanied by his wife is travelling to India. All of the books, including yours, are in that box. Now, nouns which indicate food, clothing, furniture or stationery are singular and hence take a singular verb. So, it's easy to remember singular, singular. If singular subject, then singular verb. Let's read these sentences. The furniture needs paint. Let's mark here the singular subject, the furniture. And then needs is the verb, singular verb. Again, how do we know that it's a singular verb? S will be added to the verb. It is not need. Needs is singular verb. The stationery is not available in this shop. Here stationery is that noun which is indicating. The food is kept covered to keep off flies. Whenever we refer to a pair of scissors or a pair of jeans, we use singular verb because we are considering this as singular subject, one thing. So matching this, we will use singular verb. Let's read these sentences. A pair of socks is washed by her. Children, don't get confused by just socks. You might think that socks is plural, so I will use a plural verb. No, consider this as one entity, as in a pair of socks. Read it entirely and then consider it singular. Similarly, a pair of trousers is hanging on the clothesline, not are hanging. So is the correct usage of verb here. Whenever we use the words a lot of, plenty of for quantity of something, we always use a singular verb. But whenever we use a lot of, plenty of for number, we take plural verbs. So when for number we use plural, and when for quantity we use singular. So let's remember this difference. Okay, let's read these sentences. A lot of milk has turned sour. Plenty of water was wasted. This refers to the quantity of something. And now, a lot of children are attending the function. Can you count the number of children? Yes, so it's countable. A lot of boys are cheering their school team. This refers to countable noun. So you can see the usage of verb here. Now another interesting aspect is the usage of much and little. Much and a little take a singular verb. So these are slight separate exceptions that you have to remember. So we have much and a little. Both take singular verb. Let's read these sentences. Much has already been given. If you will write much have already been given, then it would be incorrect. Now, just a little patience is needed. If you write are needed, then it would be incorrect. When all parts of the subject are plural, the verb is obviously plural. For example, neither the owners nor the workers are in agreement. Here, owners, workers are subject, that is plural. Therefore, we have used the verb, plural verb, are. Now, whenever a sentence begins with there, the verb must agree with the real subject that follows it. There might be more than one subject, but we have to stick to the real subject. Let's see how. There is a book on the table. There are lions in the forest. So we will stick to the first subject, that is book. And in the second sentence, lions. When using as well as, except, in addition to, no less than and with, the noun before these phrases determines the number. It determines the number in these special cases. Let's read these sentences. My problem with you is you don't listen. The students, in addition to the teacher, are all receiving special recognition for their excellent research. Let's mark here. In addition to, and then with you. Similarly, the words, this is a long list. You have to remember this. The words each one, either, neither, everyone, everybody, anybody, anyone, nobody, somebody, someone, and no one are singular and require a singular verb. All of them, although they look plural, but we will consider them as singular subject. For example, each of these hot dogs is juicy, not are juicy. Everybody knows Mr. Jones. Either is correct. So we will mark here the verbs is, knows, and is. All are singular. One of is always singular and takes a singular verb. Each, either, neither, and everyone always take a singular verb. So you must remember this list. Let's read these sentences. One of the girls is sick. Now children, when you read the word girls, we often get confused and we forget one of the. You have to focus on one of the and not the word girls, because then you will end up in writing are sick. One of the boys has fallen from stairs. So here is and has are singular verbs. News always takes a singular verb. We consider news as singular subject. Let's read these sentences. What is the latest news about the meeting? What is the breaking news about Sanjay Dutt? So look here how singular verb is used, is and not are. Agreement in question relies on understanding that the subject comes after the verb or between the parts of the verb. For example, how does the internet help a job seeker find a job? अब ये एक अलग तरह का सेंटेंस है, ये क्वेश्चन सेंटेंस है या इंटरोगेटिव सेंटेंस है. यहाँ आप देखेंगे किस तरह से ये रूल फॉलो किया गया है. It depends on understanding of the subject. Okay, and it will always come after the verb. Sometimes the pronoun who, that, or which is the subject of a verb in the middle of a sentence. The pronouns who, that, and which become singular or plural according to the noun directly in front of them. So if that noun is singular, use a singular verb. If it is plural, use a plural verb. That is the main rule we have to stick to. For example, Roma is the scientist who writes the reports. These are the girls who work very hard. Children, I hope you really enjoyed studying so many details about verbs, their types, and various rules with examples. I'm sure you will revisit this topic and attempt the practice exercises.